Hi, thank you for joining me. I'm delighted to be part of this conference. We often talk as coaches about the importance of understanding the game and that we also need to understand the player. But how often do we actually understand ourselves and understand the role we play in the process of supporting players to develop and learn this great game? So what I want to focus on for the next 45 minutes is about you, about developing your brand, your vision, and your philosophy. That's how I remember football growing up in the northeast of England. It was very much about in the back lane, free play, creativity, very much in that culture. Everyone had the opportunity to play. We play in the school playground. Notice there's no bibs there. We were always playing in our school uniform in the grey jumper. It was about equal teams. If three kids came along who'd missed the start of the game and one team was winning by 4 or 5, the team that was losing would get the 2 players, or the team that was losing would get the best player, because we wanted to be a challenge. We wanted that free spirit, that creativity. And for me, that's what football's about. So how do we actually help recreate that for today's modern player, for the children of today? So I got thinking about, and as we look on this next slide, about different brands and what they mean. So you see these 5 images there, you'll straight away start thinking about the companies, what they stand for. When you see them, it's about trust. You understand it's about quality. So I want us to start thinking about, when people see you as a coach, what do they see? What are your qualities? What do you stand for? If we were a business, we'd talk about the need for a vision, a mission, values, and a philosophy. This is about understanding yourself. But maybe as a starting point is the why, the how, and the what. Simon Sinek talks about the golden circle, but these principles are consistent in everything we do. It's no different in football. So let's start thinking about, why do you coach? What's your motivation? What gets you up on that cold morning to go out with a bag of balls and work with a lot of children? What gets you up on a Saturday and Sunday to go and take a team and maybe drive for an hour to another venue? What's your motivation? Why do you coach? Press pause and take a few minutes to think about why you coach. This is also an activity you could do in the club or with other coaches in your coaching network. But just to start with, have a think for yourself. So now you've had a think. These are some examples I thought of when I sat down and thought, why do I coach? The first one's about enjoyment. Here's a simple answer. If you don't enjoy it, if you're not getting fun out of it, why do you do it? Because if you're not getting fun, that'll come across to the players you're working with as well. So fun, enjoyment has to be absolutely near the top of that list. For me, it was about putting something back. Football was a game I loved. I wasn't a good player. I played in the streets, I played with my friends, I went to the local boys club, but I wasn't a good player. And as you get older, you understand that. So actually getting involved as a coach and a referee was an opportunity to stay involved in the game. So I've got enjoyment, stay involved, and put something back. The next for me is a love of football. If you don't love the game, how can you encourage other people to love the game? We have to love, we have to embrace it, we have to respect the game. That's why we coach. And that's about making a difference. And making a difference isn't just about making a difference and helping someone be a better footballer, it's helping them be a better person. Have to remember that not everyone will go on to play international football or professional football, but everyone that you work with in your team will go on to be a member of your community, will go on hopefully to make a difference in that community. So it's about passing on the flame. So I want to make a difference when I coach. And yes, it is about supporting and developing people to make the game better. So I'm making better people, but I also want to make the game better. I want the game to be something that's enjoyed by more. I want the game to be something that I enjoy participating in, I enjoy watching, and I want others to be able to share that experience. And yes, I coach for opportunity. It's about the opportunity for those I work with to be involved in the game, to develop, to get better. But it's also about the opportunity the game gives me for friendship, for camaraderie, for development. So that's why I coach. We'll be interested to see your list. And that list might change over time. You'll have different motivations, but we have to always start with the why. So I've talked about the why. Let's look at the how. There's lots of examples out there, and I'm sure some of the other speakers over this conference will talk about the plan, do, review model. We'll talk about how we use STEP, about the space, equipment, the technique, the practice, the people. We'll talk about lots of different ways that we can coach and help players and what that means in the modern game. For the next minute or so, though, I just want to think about the intervention continuum. So on the slide, you'll see there's some examples of the coaching methodology I think we often use. And if you go from left to right, you have the command, question and answer, observation, feedback, guided discovery, and trial and error. And in there's some real examples of what that might mean. Now, at different times, at different stages, there's been advocates for saying, no, it's only guided discovery, that the game to the teacher. At other times, it's no, the coach knows everything, the coach will give all the answers, it's very command style. When actually the reality is, as a coach, we have to be able to work across that continuum. We have to understand when is the right time for the right intervention. Because actually that's what coaching is. It's about how you observe, how you intervene, how you help. And it's about using this continuum. As a child growing up in the northeast of England, my great uncle was a joiner in the shipyards where they built these massive ships that would go all over the world. That was at the end of my street and growing up in Wall's End. And I was amazed as a child, I'd go through my uncle's toolbox and I'd see in there 6 hammers, 5 saws, 8 chisels. And I'd think as a child, why do you need all these? But he needed them because he was a master craftsman. He knew his trade. He'd served an apprenticeship. He learned by watching others. He practiced and practiced till he knew how to use each of those tools individually. He understood the right intervention at the right time. And actually, that's what coaching is. As coaches, as we develop as coaches, we will gain experience, we will build up our knowledge, and we look at what intervention to use at the right time. I think back as a young coach and the number of mistakes I made, when now I'm very much looking at how I can help. So yes, in the game situation and the child or the young player is making the same mistake time and time again, I might have to use command style, but that won't be the first place I've gone to. I might have posed questions. I might have showed an example. I might have said to a player, go and watch this on YouTube. I might have said, step back and watch this in the game. So I'll use loss of opportunity. I might have set up a practice with a condition. But as a coach, I know it's to observe and then pick the right tool to help the player understand and develop. The photograph, I chose that deliberately. That's about 10-year-old now, that photograph. And on there, I'm standing on the right-hand side. And in the middle is 2 of my old colleagues from English FA, Pete Sturgis, who I know is contributing to this conference, and John Peacock, who was the head of coaching and the England under-17 coach at the time. And we're trying to put up a mini soccer goalpost. Now, when I was a younger coach, playing with mini soccer every week, I could put up a mini soccer goalpost in about 7 minutes, from scratch, net and everything. But we're really struggling. It's been a long time since I put one up. On the next pitch to us, there's some of our coaches who work every day in primary schools and put these up every day. They're putting theirs up very quickly. And why I'm using this photograph to tell this story now is the man on the left is Fabio Capello, the England manager at the time. One of the best coaches, his success in Italy and his trophy count puts him up there as one of the best. And he just said something to John, Pete and myself. It was very simple. He just said, watch what they're doing. So Fabio didn't know how to put up a mini soccer goalpost, But what he spotted was there was someone next door to us who did, and we just sometimes had to look and observe and learn from that. So just think about, as coaches, what interventions we use and how sometimes the simplest answer can be the best answer. Next slide. So we talked about the why, what our motivation is, what keeps us turning up. We've now started thinking about the how. So what about the what? What is coaching? When we think about the what, I've tried to break it down into 18 little blocks, little bite-sized chunks that I think we need to think about when we understand the what of coaching. We have to be organized. So there needs to be a structure. But it's not only what we do on the pitch about planning our sessions and working with our players. It might be about making sure the venue's booked. It's about making sure we've spoke to the teams we're going to be playing against. We've registered with our league. There's lots of work that goes on to organize and being a coach. So we need to have some structure and organization. We need to have knowledge of the game. But we get this through lots of ways. You're not just going to get this overnight. So for me, it's about watching other coaches work. It's about watching games of football. It is about going on YouTube. It's about attending conferences and CPD events like this one we're here for today. It's always about trying to gain that knowledge. I think that becomes really important. If you're going to teach something, if you're going to work with people, we need to know what the game is ourselves. We have to be approachable. People have to feel there's a trust there that they can come and talk to you, that they can approach you. Now, it's all right saying, yes, I'm approachable, but when you're stood with a growl and arms folded, are you really approachable? Do you actually display that? Do you practice that? Do you have a relationship with other coaches where you can talk about the game? So be approachable. As a coach, you're a leader. People look up to you. You'll have to make decisions. And sometimes you have to understand what they are, and sometimes you have to stick to them. I remember years ago, when I was running my son's grassroots team, we'd made a decision very early on that it was going to be equal playing time. That was about, because actually equal playing time is important because you don't become a better player sat on the bench all the time. So everyone had to play. That's how we're going to learn about the game. We were under 10s at the time. And we'd got to a situation where we'd reached one of our local cup finals. And we're playing the game, and it's 2-2 with about 8-9 minutes to go. And a couple of the parents were starting to get agitated because I was making substitutions. And for me, it was all about, as a leader, making that difficult decision about saying, no, this is our philosophy. This is what we said at the start of the season we'd do. And actually, that's when the leadership comes in. It's when you're willing to make decisions when other people don't want you to, but you know that's what's best for the game and what's best for the team. So understand what you believe in and stick to it. And we have to be able to communicate. And we have to be able to communicate on lots of levels. So we have to be able to communicate with a young player, we have to communicate with the parents, with teachers, with other coaches, with the referee, with parents and spectators. So think about those skills. And communication is not just the ability to speak, but it's also about our listening skills. It's about the observing. It's about the eye contact. It's about how you use your body language. And yes, in this modern era, it is about how we use social media. So there's a wide spectrum in that ability to communicate, but it is part of being the modern coach in particular. And that comes back to you are role models. People will look up to you. People will copy your behaviours. So a nice sort of question just to reflect back on is, what sort of role model are you? What sort of person are you on the sideline? I've sometimes in the past seen coaches who've talked to me about, we're very inclusive, we're all about everyone plays, we're all about letting the players learn and enjoy. And I see that in training on a Tuesday night, but I've went and watched the same coach on a Saturday or match day, and it's Jekyll and Hyde. They become very domineering, very commanding, very opinionated. So be consistent. What role model are you? And actually, this is about what role model are you off the pitch as well. Because once you say you're a coach, people will be looking up to you. People will be looking at your behaviours. And particularly when I talk to young coaches now, just be careful about social media. Be careful about then going online and making comments, particularly maybe when you're angry or upset, because that will always be there, that footprint. So what sort of role model are you? As a coach or a teacher, it's actually interesting. A number of some of the leading coaches around the world who are also qualified teachers is that understanding around about pedagogy, how you teach, how you help one person learn a new skill. That's teaching. They're important qualities that we do as a coach. And next, we have to be enthusiastic. Because if we're not enthusiastic about the game, how can we expect others to? How do you give that passion? How do you make sure we pass on the baton to the next generation? And remember, that next generation aren't just going to be the players of the future. And we talked about them being in society of the future, in community members of the future. They're also, from a football point of view, the referees of the future, the coaches of the future. They're the future parents who will be bringing their children to football. So it's a massive responsibility about how our enthusiasm and what we pass on. As coaches, we have to be collaborative. It's the ability to work with other people. If we're not collaborative, you're not going to succeed as a coach. Collaboration with your players, the parents, other coaches. And we have to have a philosophy. I'll talk more about philosophy later, but just to say the philosophy for me is the bedrock. It's what keeps us steady. It's what we should always come back to. And that comes back to the example I gave earlier of being a leader. Yes, we need experience, but you've got to be careful. We gain experience in lots of ways. We gain experience by actually doing and being there in that experiential time. But we also gain experience by talking to other people. We have our lived experiences, we have shared experiences. The other trap, I'll say, be mindful of this. The number of times I would talk to a coach and they'd say, oh, you can't teach me anything. I've got 30 years experience. Well, actually, when you unpick it, they've got 1 year's experience repeated 30 times. Because actually experience means I'm learning, I'm developing all the time. My experience as a coach has helped shape where I am now, but I'm a totally different coach from that 17-year-old who first started on the journey 40 years ago. We need integrity. This probably links to your philosophy in being a leader. Yeah. People will look to you. Came across a great story a few years ago. It was a colleague was delivering on a grassroots coaching course, and he posed the question: there's a shot at goal, and your goalkeeper flies across under 11s and fingertips it away and out, and the referee doesn't see the touch and gives a goal kick, and you're running the line. You're the club assistant referee. What do you do? Now, in fairness, about 80% of the room said we'd flag and say it was a corner. But there was one coach very adamant. I'd say nothing. It's a goal kick. And the coach educator challenged him, said, what's that make you? He said, it makes me a winner. To which the coach educator replied, no, it makes you a cheat. Because not only are you cheating the opposition out of the corner, you're cheating your goalkeeper out of the recognition of a great save. So sometimes you just have to take a step back and say, why are we in it? Why do we coach? Where's your integrity? Now, understand that might change as you go through different phases in your career. But for me, some of the big blocks are your philosophy. It's doing the right thing sometimes when it's difficult, which is leadership, but never forget your integrity. As coaches, we have to be brave and take risks. This is how we develop that creativity. You know, whenever I coached a team, particularly I was coaching the last team I worked with, which was my son's team, we would, as the players got older, we would deliberately play them in different positions because we wanted them to try and learn and think about what that meant for the game. We would deliberately play different formations. And that was because I was preparing them for what I hope would be 20, 25, 30 years playing in the game, not about winning that game that day. It was so I wanted them to play in different formations. I wanted them to be able to play inflexible. I wanted them to understand the game. So sometimes you take risks, particularly where we work in grassroots. You know, what's at stake? The most important thing is, do we teach the game? Do we teach the right values? And do we support people still who want to win the game years later? Which comes back to being player-centered. It's about being holistic, and everything we do is about what the difference and what the positive impact this will have on the player. And for that, we need empathy. We have to understand. Remember when I started this presentation, I talked about to teach the game, we have to understand the game. We also have to understand the player. We have to understand ourselves. That's empathy. And yes, we're reflectors. So we're always wanting to improve, we're always thinking, what can I do better? We also recognize what we did well. Too often in coaching, we just focus too much on the negative. For years, I would hear coaches talk, and all they'd tell me is everything that went wrong. Instead of actually 90% of what we did went well. Let's focus on the positive as well. And somebody's reflection helps with that. But we have to be creative as coaches. We have to be always thinking and looking and trying to really bring out the best in our players. And maybe that comes back as my final one. Actually, as coaches, we've always got to be learners. We're always looking for what else in the game. We're always looking about how we develop as better, to be better coaches, better people, to help our players. We should always be open to new ideas, going on courses, attending events like this, reading, looking on YouTube. And also in football, I also look at, as I mentioned earlier, Simon Sinek. I'll check out some of his stuff on YouTube around leadership and management. I've really enjoyed recently reading Matthew Syed's Rebel Ideas, which talks about diversity and cognitive thinkers and about the importance of that when we're putting teams together. So all the time I'm looking to build up my experience, build up my knowledge to help me be a better coach. So we thought about the why, the how, and the what. Now let's move across to our vision, mission, values, and philosophy. Because if you're not clear on all of this, it does affect on how effective you can be. It will impact on how effective you can be. We have to have that clarity about us, about our motivation, about our philosophy, our vision, our values. So again, I'm going to ask you to press pause. I'm going to ask you to take 2 or 3 minutes, and I want you just to write down what your vision is. What's your mission? So think about, what is your vision as a coach? What's your mission as a coach? How do you want to be judged? Think of it like this. It should be very short. Imagining you're getting into a lift and you bump into the chief executive of the Football Association in your country. And you say, oh, I'm a coach. And the chief executive says, oh, it's brilliant. What do you believe in? What's your vision for coaching? What's your answer? And you've got until the lift gets from the ground floor to the 3rd floor. So you've maybe got about 20 seconds. Have a think. What's your vision? What's your mission? Great. Hopefully you've come up with some ideas then. Maybe you've come up with a few words that you think, this is where you are now. And I think we have to be realistic in time. Just in any business, will every 3 or 4 years review their vision and mission as the world changes. We do as coaches as well. This is where I've been as a coach for the last few years. My vision is about actually how do I harness the power of football? And the mission was to ensure the game is a better state when I leave than when I arrived. So what do I mean about harnessing the power of football? Football is a massively popular sport. It's the sport that's the biggest in the world. It's played by the most people and it's viewed by the most people. So how do I take that popularity and power of football to help me work with people to make them better people and give them greater opportunity and help them be the best they can be? And be the best they can be as a person, but be the best they can be as a player as well. So that for me is what harnessing the power of football is. And the mission, well, actually that becomes quite simple. We have to ensure that we make the game better. We should always be striving for making the game better. And that's not to decry what the game looks like in the past or what it looks like today. We should always be looking for better. The quote on the left-hand side of the slide is, "We are only the guardians of the game." I love that one. And it was from Sir Bobby Robson, the ex-Ipswich Town, England, Barcelona, Newcastle United coach. And I think for all of us involved in the game, at whatever level, as coaches, administrators, as referees, as players, as presidents, we have to always remember we're only the guardians of the game. Our job is to protect the game, respect the game, and hand the game on in a better state when it's time for us to leave. I'm going to ask you to press pause again. So we've talked about the why, the how, the what. We've started to think about what this means to us in terms of our vision and mission as coaches. I now just want us to take a few minutes, think about 5 or 6 words that are our values, that are our beliefs, that we'll stick to throughout our coaching career, or certainly in this next period of our coaching beliefs, of coaching career. So have a think. Welcome back. Hopefully you now have 5, 6, you might have 7 words there. These are mine when I think about it. The first thing, I want to be inclusive because the game is for everyone. I want to make sure that everyone gets the opportunity to play and the opportunity to play at their highest level, a level that they want to play at, to be challenged at and be comfortable at and have enjoyment. And inclusive does include making sure that football's for boys and girls, football's for people of all races and backgrounds, football's for people with disability. So how do I do that? How do I make sure that my sessions are inclusive? So when I'm doing it as a coach, I involve all my players. How do I make sure, I talked earlier about the importance of being clear, we were going to have equal playing time. Now that did change as the children got older. That was it's under, probably up to under 11, 12, that was equal playing time in every game. As we got older, it was about equal playing time over the season. And actually what you got to remember as well, sometimes the players get older, so they recognise where they are in the pecking order as well. Maybe it's not a story about inclusivity, but I remember when this team we'd been through, it was my son's team all the way from U7s, we're now U18s, and we're playing in the regional cup final. This is to be the regional champions. And it's 0-0. We'd finished 4th in the league that year. We're playing the team that are going for the double. It's 0-0. And 2 of the substitutes turned around to me on the bench and their line to me was, "Don't you dare put me on." Because they understood where they were in the pecking order now. As players, they understood that. And actually, they'd made a decision that the team was more important than them getting 10 minutes on the pitch. So it's that understanding about what we believe in, how it will change, and also respecting your players. I think they become really, really key as we go through this process. The next one for me is about being authentic. And this is about being true. It's about having your beliefs and being honest about it, being true to yourself and being open about who you are and what you believe in. And I think that's really important, particularly as coaches when we're working with young players, about be yourself, be true to yourself. And, and I think that becomes important if we're going to really make a difference. The next one I chose there is curiosity, because that's, for me, is always about wanting to learn, wanting to be creative, wanting to think about how I experiment. It's about recognizing sometimes progress will be messy. I'm not talking about the Argentinian midfield player, but the game itself is always messy. We don't go on a pathway that goes from A to B to C to D. Players will find different routes. In the game itself, we don't always go in straight lines. We have wiggles, but that's, for me, about curiosity, about creativity in there. And it is about really exploring, and as a coach, understanding that and what it means to my players. And it means sometimes when I'm designing practices in training, will I take a risk? The number of times I've had a great session plan, I've spent the time in, but I've turned up a training, I just thought, what if I try that? What if I just put that extra football in? What if I just make that box a bit bigger? So taking them, that for me is all about that curiosity. And then the next one is about respect. And I think there's a number of areas I talk about respect. It's about respecting those you work with, respecting that people will have a different value set, will have different beliefs, different background. It's respect. It's respecting yourself at times. It's about understanding yourself, which is what a lot of this session has been about. It's also about, for me, respecting the game, respecting what the game believes and belongs to, understanding the culture of the game. And that probably links in about respecting where you're working, respect the values of the community and the country. So respect is really important. And the last value I'm working towards is about challenge. How do I continually challenge those I'm working with to improve and get better? How do I set and challenge myself to always look for the what next, always look for how I can improve? What's that mean for me as a coach? What's that mean on Tuesday night? And sometimes recognizing I might have to go back and start again to move forward. When we set sessions, I talk to coaches a lot about thinking about the radio dial in your car. I'm not sure we have radio dials anymore, but the older people will understand. And it's that sometimes I make the music louder, sometimes I make the music quieter. And that's about setting your challenge and understanding what that means. And just to go back, I talk respect that the world has changed. Young players are going to look different. I grew up in a generation where we watched 2 live football matches a season back in England. FA Cup final, England, Scotland. And every 4 years we had the World Cup. And actually in them days it was 16 teams, so it was only about 20 odd matches. When now the modern player in every country in the world has the ability to watch 2 or 3 live games probably every day. They have the opportunity to watch highlight packages, to watch clips through on their phone that they carry around in their pocket. So the game is different, the players are different. They're playing PlayStation every night. The game understanding of the modern player is massive. I turned up to, I've done some refereeing recently just to help me stay fit and put something back into grassroots football. And I was listening to some players talk, and they're talking about you play CDM, you play CAM. And I had to think about it, and I came back and spoke to my son. He told me that's the terminology they use on PlayStation, on FIFA. My generation would have talked about you play 4 and you play 10. So it's just understanding that. And that's what I come back to, but actually, if we're going to be authentic, curious, respectful, inclusive, and challenged, we have to stay in touch. We have to look at what the modern game looks like. And the modern game with the learners we work with will be different. We've now started to build this picture. And this is an exercise that we could say we've done ourselves, but we could do collaboratively. We might do this in our clubs. We might do this in our community of coaches online. But what you're thinking about now, here's your challenge. This is the Twitter challenge. I know Twitter has changed recently, but I want you to come up with your coaching philosophy using 140 characteristics or less. Give yourselves a couple of minutes and let's see what you come up with. So hopefully you've now come up with a philosophy. You've started thinking about building all the other experience we spoke about and building that up to help you develop a sentence about who you are. This is mine. And I've split mine in two deliberately. It's to support and develop good people. And then it's about technically excellent and innovative players with exceptional game understanding and decision-making skills. So I've deliberately looked at in two parts because actually everyone we work with, if we spoke earlier, will be a future citizen, will grow up to be an adult, and hopefully a contributing member of the society and community they live in. So the first point in me is I actually want good people. And then I've looked at the football. So is that technically excellent? They can receive the ball, they can play the ball. They're innovative and creative as players, but exceptional game understanding. And we talk about earlier, that's not about what I show them, it's recognizing they'll get game understanding from what else they see, what else they're able to observe on all the different channels now. And then how they use that in their decision-making skills. Often when I watch a game of football, it's not the technique that's not in the right place. It's the decision-making that goes with the technique, which will let a player down. So this has to go into that whole rounded in the football part. But first and foremost, I develop good people and support good people so they can make meaningful contributions. That's one of my favorite photographs. That is turn of the 20th century in a lake in the middle of London. And that's how we're teaching people how to swim. Now, 115 years ago, that would have been seen as cutting edge education because that was it. When today, I think you might get a knock on the door if you tied rope around people's necks and try to get them to swim. So actually, I thought it was necks when I first saw it. I've realised now as you look closer, the rope's in the back. But what the point I'm trying to make is actually the world moves on. So that was excellent cutting edge education 120 years ago. Today, well, we're doing this conference all online. We have PowerPoint, we have access to the Wi-Fi, the internet with all the information that's out there. It looks a bit different. The fact I can walk around, and many people do with your phone, and on there I can have everything I need to run my football team. And even down to the thing about how we use technology, we talk about one player. They've grown up with different formations. They've grown up with playing the game on PlayStation, watching the game on telly. When we talk about, I said earlier, you're not refereeing recently. I refereed an under-18 game last Saturday. Grassroots, local league. Both teams were taking goal kicks short inside their own penalty area, 6-yard box, 6-yard box. Both teams were comfortable playing out through the thirds. Both teams wanted to be creative and wanted to get the ball to midfield and have a skill and play forward. 15 years ago, I think I'd seen a lot more of the ball just being hoofed up the park, as we used to talk about. But now our players, now I think I'd love to say that's all down to the coaching methodology, the changes we made in the English FA at the time. And yes, that's part of it. Part of it is about a little rule change in English FA just about 10 years ago, which is in the under 10s, on goal kicks, there's now a retreat line. The opposition must go to the halfway line. So that encourages from an early age players to play out from the back and they get used to it. But it's also about the influence those players have been playing PlayStation and watching Barcelona and watching Man City and Liverpool all play from the back with a high intensity. And that's what they're observing every week. And they're then also watching live football, and at half time, they're getting the analysis and they're getting the ex-players and coaches go on the screen and draw diagrams and talk about different runs and about different phases of play. This is all adding to developing these technically excellent, innovative players with exceptional game understanding, decision-making skills. And my job as a coach is how do I support that and encourage that? Because there's a variety of what learn. And then we move on. We talk about all the stats in the game. We talk about the ability to video games and video analysis. Well, 20 years ago, there was only professional teams could afford that. Now, grassroots teams are doing this on their phone, and they then get the technology to pinpoint and look at particular aspects of the game. So the way we learn, the way we teach is much different. But our philosophy is what holds us together. That is our bedrock, our anchor to the work we do. So we spent the last 45 minutes together, 45 minutes together, talking about the why, the how, and the what of coaching, about understanding what it means and why we do it. What's our motivation? And then I understand my why. It's, well, how do I do it? I use my different interventions. I observe, I make an intervention, I help, I support. And the what is all those 18 building blocks we spoke about that integrity, about being a leader, about being able to communicate, enthuse, having empathy. That's what makes us a coach. And I've taken them away and we thought about what our vision is. It's that one sentence about harnessing the power of football. The mission to make the game better today than what was in the past and stronger for the future. It's the values about being inclusive, about being respectful, about challenging, about being authentic. And it's about having that clear philosophy, the why. It always comes back to the why. The philosophy about I do it to make better people, and I do it to develop technically exceptional players with great game understanding and decision-making skills. The challenge is how do you put that process into action? What's this mean to you on Tuesday night? What's this mean to you next Saturday or Sunday? And I then also leave with this. It's something we continue to review and update because you will change as a person. The world around us will change. The game will change. Always will, always has. For me, it's been a 40-year journey, but I'm always, well, that's so far. And I'm always looking at the what next. The middle picture then in the white kit, that's me as a young coach in 1982. I'm 18 years of age, just turned 18. 1980s, that was not, curly perms, very popular in football. That was my genuine hairstyle. 40 years later, being a coach, you get a hairstyle like this. But I always say to people, talk the journey, look at the football we're using in that picture. I'm not sure I'd let my dog play with that now, yet that's what we were letting a team of under 12-year-old lads in that picture. And it's interesting now, I can look back on that because those young men in that picture are now early 50s, which is frightening. But I look at it and I can track where their careers have been. I know how some of them are still involved in football. I still speak to a few of them. Few of them, their children now in football. There's a number of them have got their coaching qualifications involved. But I also know that most of them are Sky subscribers. I also know that one of them was a police officer, one was an engineer, one was a teacher, one's working in sports development. So I know that what they're about. And that's really what we talk about in this long-term journey. And then the latter pictures are almost developed with my son's team in recent years. I know I'm a totally different coach with my son's team than I was, is that very raw, very naive 18-year-old 40 years ago. That's because I've changed, I've developed, I've been a learner, I've wanted to gain knowledge, and I've gained experience, not just experience in football, but experience in life. And I think that's always what we're looking at. So understand the journey, understand where we come from, help us shape where we are today, but just as importantly, always keep looking to what's next and what the future brings. And I will leave you with this last slide. Firstly, thank you for the difference you make. You will play a fantastic role in a young person's life because of the time you give up. Make sure you use that opportunity wisely. It's a great opportunity, but it's a heavy responsibility. So thank you for making the difference. And remember this, change starts with you. So are you ready? Keep up the good work. Keep enjoying your coaching. Keep learning and developing. Keep being curious, and look forward, hopefully, to seeing you in a room face to face sometime in the future. Thank you.